draft one may not be great, but if we keep doing this for the next 20 years, we're going to get really good.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. Nothing you hear on this show is legal or investment advice, nor is it an offer to buy or sell securities. Always consult your own legal and financial professionals before making decisions. Welcome back to another episode of the Capital Flow Podcast. Got an incredible friend, Bronson Hill, with us. This gentleman has raised nearly $50 million for real estate deals. And his biggest claim to fame, I guess we can call it that, is raising $8 million in 24 hours. And we're excited. We're actually going to have him out to the Capital Flow meetup here in a few weeks to be sharing that story, but we're going to get a sneak peek of it today. So look, if you're looking to raise capital, this is a show for you. We bring in experienced operators like Bronson that are actually doing it, that are actually doing real deals, talking to people. So we're really excited to get into it. Bronson, thank you so much for being here.
Dallon, super excited to be here, man. We're in town. We had our event, the Wealth Forum, with our mastermind here, and you and Paul were there. It was so much fun having you guys, and just love the value you're bringing, especially to capital raisers and with what your business is doing as well.
And that event was awesome. Really appreciate it. I mean, you had incredible people there: Vinny Chopra, Russell Gray, Kenny McElroy, and then just some of the guests, some of the people, the members of your forum are just some of the most genuine people we've met. So before we jump into it, why don't you share a little bit about what the Wealth Forum is?
Thanks, man. Yeah. So, it was a really great time. We had a fun time, but really I've realized in having conversations with over 2,500 high net worth investors, average net worth of about 2 million, is that, you kind of learn, the goal I think as a capital raiser too, is you learn about your avatar and you learn about who you're trying to serve. And I think that a lot of times we just think we know what people want, but the more conversations I've had is that people that are wealthy, a lot of these people are 2 to 10 million net worth or higher, and they feel alone. They're in a room or they're around people. They can't talk about money with anybody. They talk to their family. It's like, well, that's just kind of a no-no because, family and money doesn't go together. You talk to your friends, they think you're crazy because they're like, why wouldn't you have a financial advisor and you're doing all this alternative stuff? What about stocks and bonds? And so when we get people in the room that are the same kind of crazy that want to talk about investing and they want to talk about personal development, it's really magical. So it becomes this conversation around mindset, around legacy. How do I teach my kids wealth? And so we just have a small handful of people, but it's been a lot of fun to create that and really help people to network and become their better selves. So
it's interesting and ironic. You said that people in that range, the 2 to 10 million net worth, sometimes feel lonely, feel alone. And that might be a shock for some people listening to this, even considering that, because one might think if you've got the money, if you've got friends, anything that time, whatever you want to do, that loneliness probably wouldn't fall into that. They wouldn't fall into that category. So what do you think it is? What do you think it is that triggers that?
Well, I really think, it's true of business people. It's true of anybody. You get to be, the more success you have in life. So let's say I'm worth $5 million or $10 million. I have a business that I've done well. Maybe I've had an exit. You can celebrate that maybe with a couple friends that know what you're doing, but a lot of times they're not, maybe real estate investors. And so it becomes more lonely. So sometimes I've realized people that are very successful, there's fewer people they can talk to about, especially about finances. So when we put people in the room, it's like, they're going to have knowledge that nobody else has. They're going to be like, I've invested with this specific group in real estate or we're doing private equity stuff now, and it's been for 10 years. I've had this experience. I would absolutely work with these guys again, right? That's very valuable information coming from another passive investor. And this is something as capital raisers, we don't realize. We want to help people. I really believe everybody understands, people listening, we want to help people. We also want to be a part of that. And we want to get a piece of that as well. But we still have a dog in the fight. We want everybody to do my deals, right? I want everybody to invest with me because I love my deals, right? We all love our deals. But another passive investor, they need to have those peer relationships that they're not trying to pitch them anything. They're just simply bouncing ideas off. I'd work with these guys again. I'd never work with these guys again, right? That's really valuable. So I think that's a very transformational relationship. When we get it, you saw in the room, there was these heart conversations. We had some conversations at dinner the first night. There was a lady there that had about 10 million in equity just in single family houses. And she had, I think it was a very, very low debt, just about like 4 or 10% debt on it. So she was almost all in cash. Wow. So her returns were probably about 2 to 3% returns per year. I mean, it's very, very low return on equity. And so a couple other passive investors said, hey, what if you took that equity and you put it into these multifamily, you put it into a syndicated deal, you put it here and here, and you were getting, 5, 10% returns per year. This was how much you'd get per year. And it was just transformative for her to hear that.
Yeah. And it's stuff that people, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And when you get people that have actually gone through it and they talk about, and they're willing to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, I think that's what makes rooms like that so powerful.
Well, and one more thing I was going to say too is that I think for a lot of these investors, it's really valuable to share about difficulties and struggles and things that have not gone well. And again, it's not just, again, when people have, once your net worth over 5 million or a few million or 10 million, whatever it is, a lot of people have enough, right? So once you have enough, what's next for you? A lot of times, and it's really surprised me. We started this deal really, this mastermind around deal flow and really around kind of creating value and just really tax strategy and asset protection as things. But I've been surprised how much it's around mindset. It's around teaching your kids. It's about leaving a legacy. And this is something I think if you want to be a great capital raiser, you need to be really good at understanding what your audience needs, the people that are actually investing. And that's where, if you just spend as much time as you can, if you think about maybe you're new to capital raising and you have maybe a few people that have invested with you, you need to just start spending more time with them and figure out really what their challenges are. And the more you can create around that, people invest with me or with you or with others because we create value and people listen. They're like, this person gets me. I resonate with them, but they're bringing value to my life. And so I think that's a big takeaway for any capital raiser. It's just, how can I really understand what this person needs? And that's a good sales strategy. If you're putting yourself in their shoes and trying to figure it out, a lot of times we assume, but we really don't know what people need until we actually ask and try to figure that out.
It's a matter of discovery. It's a matter of just asking the right questions and really trying to figure out how you can provide value to them. Now, you have an experience or have a history in sales that I'm sure has helped you in this space quite a bit. So can you share a little bit about your life before capital raising and then I guess similarities and some differences between it?
Yeah. So my background is medical device sales. I did it for 10 years and I enjoyed it. I was making over $200,000 a year. I loved what I did. I felt like I was making a difference. It was great parts to it. The thing that I didn't have was control over my time. So I wanted to have, and I was making millions of dollars for someone else, right? So I wasn't making it for me. I was making it for someone else. And so I just kept saying, man, if I had a product or service, something I could sell, that I could be a part of it, I could be part of the equity side. And then so for me, actually, it's interesting. When I first got into multifamily, I had a cousin who's really in multifamily, doing it for years and years. Didn't syndicate, but just high net worth, all this. And he said, "Why don't you do multifamily?" I said, "Well, I don't have the money." And he taught me about what capital raising was. I went to some events, learned about it, and I didn't even really see right away that I was going to be a capital raiser, which is kind of funny. So even though I had the sales background, I didn't see capital raising as being a sales. It kind of feels funny to say right now.
Why do you think that was?
I think I just wanted to get a deal done. I just wanted to be a part of some of these bigger deals. So I thought, okay, I can be a deal finder. It just seemed like a lot. Like, it sounds like, hey, if you're out selling to doctors and it's like, hey, go start raising millions of dollars. Like, it just, even now it sounds a little crazy. Like, it sounds like in the world, I've raised over 45 million. It's like, that's nuts, right? If I'm like that, who does that, right? That's just crazy. But everything's crazy until you've done it one time. And so for me, when I first started, I started a meetup in LA. Started a meetup. We had 60 people at the first meeting. Actually, Christina, who you met, we partnered. I went to her and said, "Hey, let's start a meetup. I'll do all the work, and we'll do it on multifamily." So she had a general real estate meetup, and I just started trying to bring value. And I had a guy approach me and say, "Hey, I do one of your deals." And I was like, "Are you talking to me?" And so that's the point. Actually, I think for new capital raisers, this is really valuable. There's a difference between being an expert and being a leader, right? So an expert is somebody who's knows all the stuff, knows the topic very well, and a leader is just somebody who's in the space, who's active, who's maybe at the front of the room asking the dumb questions, whatever. That's what I was. I was a guy at the front of the room asking the dumb questions, leading the room, and so that's a great way to really have people see you as a leader. So that's kind of how I got started. So this guy said, "Hey, I do a deal with you," and so my sales ears perked up, and I was like, "Well, let's grab some coffee," and I showed him a sample deal, and then I connected him with another guy in the room who had a deal. So just kind of really, that's what raising capital is, right? Connecting a deal with somebody who's, hey, I'm looking for this kind of thing.
So it wasn't even your own deal that you raised.
Wasn't my own deal
on the first one.
Correct. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Because most people, when they say, "Hey, I'm interested in doing a deal with you," the inexperienced salespeople, they get that commission breath and they jump into what's in it for me.
Yeah.
As you mentioned that you didn't see yourself doing sales initially. or raising capital initially. Do you think there's any mindset component around that between, like, I guess not seeing the similarity between medical device sales and then raising capital from investors?
Yeah, 100%. It's I think, again, I think this is why, at our event we had a lot of visualization and mindset related stuff, and it's just we become the person that we create, right? We create it with our words, we create it with our mindset, the images we put in front. Napoleon Hill would say spend 30 minutes a day thinking about the person that you intend to become. So before I was raising any capital, and that was $100,000 I raised for that first one. Then there was about a 6-month period where I was just trying different things and putting things out there on social media. And, this was years ago, but nothing was sticking. And so, but I kept kind of creating that. I'm going to be somebody who's going to raise money. And then I had this breakthrough where I just through a partner, I approached a partner, and this is, I'll kind of come back to this, but a lot of times we think, if you have, single family experience and you've done single family, you'll think like, oh, I have, I had 3 or 4, four single family houses, and I was kind of managing them with a property manager or whatever. It's kind of me, right? There wasn't really a team. But with capital raising and even with bigger deals, if you're operating, it's a team effort. It's never one person. It's multiple people. And so I had to kind of get out of like when you're talking about team, it's like I'm raising money for this deal, but it's not me operating. It's my partner who has 15 years of operating experience, right? So then people look at it like, oh, it's not my inexperience, it's the team's experience, right? And so that's a way you can leverage team to like raise a lot of money very quickly. But a lot of times we want, like you said, the sales mindset, we want the whole pie, versus it's like, hey, if you just partner, the hardest part for new capital raisers is getting from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
Getting that first 100K, getting that first few hundred, whatever it is, getting your first deal on the GP side, that's the hardest thing. And once you've done it, then you can use that as, hey, I'm doing this is what I'm doing. But it's just getting that first one done is the most challenging part.
I know for me, I grew up in a home, and I think a lot of us have, where you don't talk about money. You don't ask people how much money they make. And depending on what type of deal you're raising for in our industry, a lot of times people need to be an accredited investor, meaning they have a net worth of $1 million or more, or they make over $200,000 a year, right? So in order to have those conversations, you need to ask people questions about their financial situation. Yeah. So when you that first experience you had raising that capital for your first deal, were there some similar limiting beliefs or things you had to overcome? And how did you overcome that? How did you have that confidence and courage to ask for that first $100,000?
Honestly, imposter syndrome is a thing. I mean, for every successful person that I know that's truly successful has had imposter syndrome at some point. Like, who am I to be offering anything? Who am I to what do I have? And people may look at, my life or your life, oh, you've raised all this money, or you're doing the business, you're doing this thing. But, it happens constantly. And so I think it's a constant. This is where, Tony Robbins, we shared this yesterday, that at the meetup or the mastermind, is saying that, 80% of success in life is just getting your psychology right, just getting the right mindset. And then 20% is actually skill, or actually maybe doing the work, right? So it's actually just really, how do you approach your how do you look at it yourself? So I think, visualizations are huge. And then I think one thing, Robert Kiyosaki, everybody knows him for his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But he has a book, my cousin, who's the real estate full-time, 30 years now, he's been doing it. He gave me this book. He said, hey, you should read this book. And it's by him. And it says, before you quit your job, right? A lot of capital raisers want to quit their job, right? Yeah. And it was like the month before I left, I already put in my notice, so I was going to leave my job. And I was like, come on, man, I'm already leaving my job. But I read the book, very, very good book. I highly recommend it because, as an employee, it's very different than an entrepreneur. And if you want to be a capital raiser, you want to be in real estate full-time, it's an entrepreneur's life, right? And that there's highs and lows, there's other things. And he describes, being an entrepreneur it's very different, because if you make mistakes in your job, what will happen? You make too many mistakes, you will get fired. But as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to make a lot of mistakes and then quickly learn. Which is completely different. This is why he wrote the other book, why A students work for C students. The A students, they don't want to take any, they don't want to have, everything's got to be perfect. I don't want to make everything, there's a right answer for everything.
You make too many mistakes, you fail the exam.
C students, and even we had Russ Gray at this event recently. He was just, I'm trying this, I'm doing this, but he's got all kinds of things he's doing. And it's like, Michael Jordan had this quote that said, I've missed 50,000 shots. I've had the game-winning shot 56 times and missed, and all these different things. And he's like, I'll keep shooting. And he said, that's why I'll keep missing, and that's why I'm successful. So it's the idea of whatever you're doing, be willing to try different things, throw things on the wall and see what sticks. Because it'll be like, hey, and even Tony Robbins says something similar. He says, keep your end goal in mind. If my end goal is I want to raise $1 million, okay, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to reach out to all my successful friends, but I don't know anybody. Okay, that didn't really work. Well, I'm going to try this approach over here. I'm going to go to meetups. Well, that kind of worked. Okay. Well, I'm going to start a meetup. Well, that's worked a little better. I'm going to start a podcast. Well, that's great in this way. And I'm going to do webinar. So you can try different things, and you'll find for you. And it's not what I did. It's not what you did. It's what works for that person.
I love what you just said there, because I think there's a lot of gurus, coaches, people coming out saying, hey, follow this exact guide, follow this step by step, and you'll be successful. And I've always kind of struggled with that. And I think there's truth to what they did. Obviously, it's what got them successful, and that's now why they're sharing it. But these journeys I found are very individual. They're very personalized, and having clarity on what your strengths are, what energizes you, I think that's where you need to start. Because then as you hear these different playbooks or these different groups or strategies for accomplishing whatever it is you want to do, in this case, raising capital, it's easier for that internal light to go off and like, ding, that's it. Like, that's aligned with who I am and what I want to do. So let me lean into that. Now, I love what you brought up too in regards to the switching from W-2 to entrepreneurship. That is a serious transitional period. Share with our listeners a little bit about what you had to go through making that jump.
There's a lot. So I made a goal that this is before I'd raised any money. I said in 3 years, I want to be out of my job. And I think there's different ways. I think there's 3 levels of financial freedom. I talk about in my book, Fire Yourself, where the first one is you're just covering your living expenses, your current expenses. For me, that was about,
hey, as a business owner or entrepreneur, one of your biggest struggles is raising capital. Maybe you've gone to the bank, maybe you've been turned down, or maybe you just have never thought of before speaking to investors. The reason the people here at Copless Pro, Dallon and Paul, have decided to partner with us over here at Copple Connections is we not only teach people how to attract and raise capital, we actually put you in the rooms where the capital flows. That's right. My name is Brad Blazer, and I've raised over $2 billion. And over the last 5 years, I have personally taught and mentored hundreds of people around the world on how to attract, raise, and close capital so they can be doing something bigger in life. But it's not only the coaching and mentoring. While we're working together, I put you in rooms of curated events with family offices, broker-dealers, and registered investment advisory firms. That's right. We create the proximity to my network because we know that proximity is power. It's our belief and our finding that no other company out there offering services in the capital raising space is doing that, which is why we have forged this strategic relationship. If you'd like to learn more, click the link below that's provided here in this podcast. And this is Brad Blazer saying we can't wait to work together.
$6,000 a month. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was like, this is my minimum I need to live, to travel, do things. I live simply. And then there was, can I replace my income, right? That was another number. And then there's the financial freedom, like living the life of my dreams number, right? But I think the first number is really that kind of rat race number. What would cover me to be able to live? And it was substantially less, of course, than my 200 or 250K, I was making in my job. So I think, just kind of figuring out, okay, what do I actually need to make this happen, and making that decision. I'm gonna find a way out of this and be able to just get to where I'm not having to do this job, because I didn't like the hustle. I didn't like having to work for somebody else. I didn't like not having the time off. I love to travel. Traveled 6 times internationally last year. So as I was approaching, I started, and a little bit of my story, 6 months in, like I said, I raised the 100K. I found a partner, and basically he was teaching people to raise capital, but they were not raising capital much themselves. But he had a huge brand. And so I said, hey, what if we work together? I'll come in, I'll help, I'll do these calls, I'll do whatever. So over the next 18 months, I had 1,000 one-on-one phone calls with high net worth investors, basically through his platform. But it gave me the reps, right? It gave me these conversations.
And he probably loved that.
And he loved it because they were able, we raised, and that's, how do we raise $8 million in 24 hours? I had all these calls. People were teed up. We had a great deal. I hadn't had a deal in a while. And then it was like, okay, let's go for it. So there's a process to that as well. But I think, for me, the biggest thing was being willing to hustle. I'm not a big hustle culture guy, but being willing to say, hey, I'm working full time. Can I dial that down a little bit? Maybe do, instead of 40 hours, maybe 20, 30 hours over there. And instead of being a rock star sales rep, can I be, a mediocre one for a little bit? Because my brighter future is here.
Yeah.
And so, but getting ready to leave, it was hard. It was really hard to leave. I actually wanted to leave at one point. A couple people kind of talked me out of it. And then when I was ready to leave, it was like I had to go to an entrepreneurs group and say, hey, this is where I'm at. Here's my business. And without exception, they were all saying like, you should all leave pretty much as soon as possible. And if it doesn't work out, you could always go back to medical sales. And it was a real mind shift because all my friends and family were like, why would you ever leave? You have a 200K plus job. It became the golden handcuffs, right? So you got to be careful who you listen to as well.
And it's always the people that aren't where you want to be that are telling you not to do it. And we listen to them. So many people listen to them. And I think it's because it's oftentimes friends and family and people close to us, and you do value their opinion. But I think often unintentionally they project a lot of their own insecurities onto you and your decision. 100%. So getting around the right people is huge. So let's get a little tactical now on sales and raising capital. So you had these phone calls, 1,000 phone calls with these people, and you've continued to raise capital since. What have been some just key things, strategies that you've implemented that just seem to work for you?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, like I talked about, creating value. People work with those they like and trust. And if you have those three things, know, like, and trust. Everybody says, well, who would I invest? I ask this question of the capital raisers. I'm going to ask it at your meetups. Who would you invest with? Is it what's more important, that they know you, they like you, or they trust you, right? And I'm saying, it's trust. They've got to trust you. And I'd say that's what most people say, right? You don't work with them unless you trust them, right? But the answer really is the first one. They don't know you. They don't know who you are. 99.9% of people that could invest in your deal, they don't even know who you are. They don't have the knowing trust of. There's no way they can trust you because they don't even know much about you, right? So I think that's the biggest obstacle, and that's where. And how do people get known? How do people get known? Right? They get known for doing something different. They get known for having a great podcast, having a great business, having a unique way of approaching things, or some ways that they approach. So be willing. Like I would say, whatever if everybody says, hey, do this and get a podcast, do something totally different. Like we didn't do podcasts for a good year or two. I started webinar. I did this monthly webinar series with experts. And for me, that's become a real great lead source for us. And writing a book, doing things that are different that a lot of people don't want to do. So I think if you're willing to do the things that others are not willing to do, even if they fail, even if it doesn't work the way you want, we've had a lot of things we spent a lot of tens of thousands of dollars on things. It didn't work. We've tried everything, but like it is all education. It is all learning. I'm getting better. I'm learning. I'm growing. And that's the idea of that quote that says it's not the critic that counts, right? It's the opponent who's actually in the arena who's trying different things. So for me, I think, or I guess I should say for anybody, finding a way to add value is great. When you actually have a conversation with investors, we can talk about that conversation. So once you actually have somebody on the phone, hey, I'm interested to hear about your deals. Like, so what's that call look like, right? That makes a lot of people nervous. Like, I don't have this accredited investor on the phone. What do I do? And so I think the biggest thing is, just realize like it's going to take you time just to get comfortable. It's going to take more reps, and the first person may not invest. I had 62 phone calls with friends and family or in-person meetings, and 0 invested initially. I mean, some did later, but nobody invested. Hunter Thompson had a similar experience of doing a fancy dinner. Nobody invested. But I think it's just, I ask a few questions. I say, well, how did we get connected, or how do you, especially as you get a bigger brand, that's really helpful to know what you should double down on. So that's a question. How did you find it? Tell me a little bit about your work and your investing experience. So again, I'm trying to analyze like, who is this person on the phone? How sophisticated are they? If they're a doctor that's worth $5 million, but they've only done stocks and bonds, we're going to have a very basic conversation about syndication. Yeah. If they've done 25 syndications, it's going to be cap rate reversions and something more. It's going to be something much more technical, right? So figure out who you're talking to. Then it's figure out what their goals are. Is it cash flow? Is it appreciation? Their experience of investing. And then you just want to figure, are they accredited? Are they not? And then also, here's what and then you share about what you do. And hey, is this something that would fit for you? So it's kind of just trying to figure out who this person is and can I help them? That's really the sales question. And if I can't help them, maybe somebody else can help them. Maybe this person over here. And that builds a lot of trust as well with people.
Just like that first investor that came up to you and you introduced them to somebody else. I think one of the biggest mistakes newer capital raisers make is that they try to jump right into the deal. Mm-hmm. They say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Investor, look at these returns, look at the location, look how beautiful this project is. And they don't do what you just suggested. So in that first call, really getting to understand the investor and what they're looking for. Do you find yourself being able to accomplish that in one call? Does it take a couple calls? Like walk us through a typical process there.
Yeah, and just to go back a second and clarify. So the first investor I had, I did have a conversation with them, and then I did separately talk to the person who had a deal, and I actually did. I was able to work into the GP on that deal because I thought I was going to raise more money, but that's how I was able to do that. But yeah, building trust with people takes time. Now I will give this example. The guy that I worked with for a year and a half, and we raised $15 million together. So I made a lot of money. We both made a lot of money doing that. And you know how it was really interesting to me when I first met him. It was at an event. I showed up and I was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" I'm a little gregarious, as you know. I'm a little excited, and so I was just super excited. Oh my gosh! And like he didn't know me, right? But I'd spent hours with the guy. I literally spent hours. I listened to all his podcasts. I watched his stuff online, whatever. So I realized, like, as a capital raiser, you want to be doing as much one to many as you can because it's a multiplier of your time. Even if you do a YouTube video and it gets 20 views, that's 20 people, or one person watching it 20 times. You built trust with people, and that stuff has a scaling effect, and especially YouTube kind of lives forever versus other social media goes away in about 2 weeks or a week, it's gone. So I think the idea of like, if the more you can have things that you're adding value for, it really does build trust. We typically do one phone call. Sometimes I'll set a follow-up call. It depends. It depends on the situation. It has, I mean, to be honest, it's much more challenging now than it was 5 years ago to raise capital. And we talked about this yesterday at the event. It's the best time to raise capital as far as the deals, how the deals are, is actually the hardest time. It's counterintuitive. When everybody's kind of crazy excited about whatever, it's actually the easiest to raise capital, right? And the deal we raised $8 million in 24 hours, that was an easy time to raise capital, right? And the deal was, two deals turned out fine, but there was more risk in a deal just because of the time in the market.
Yeah.
So, but it's counterintuitive, right?
So when it comes to working with investors and how you communicate with them after they invest with you, what have you found to be an effective way to maintain that relationship after that initial sale?
Yeah. So what I do, I have a kind of a spreadsheet where I have those questions on. There's just a Google sheet. I'll have them on there. I'll have my assistant actually reach out the next week and just say, "Hey, just checking in. Do you have any other? Can we set up a follow-up call with Bronson?" Just kind of ask for that. Hey, do you want to have a follow-up call? A lot of people do have multiple. They want to kind of get to know you a bit. And so sometimes I forget that I'm kind of on the next thing already, but it's nice having systems and processes and people that can help you do that. And then, I think we call it, this is actually, so Russ Gray, who you met, he has a great event called How to Win Funds and Influence People. So it's kind of a take on the Dale Carnegie thing, but it's the best sales event I've been to. And it has this idea of farming versus hunting. So in sales, there's this idea that like, you're out there, you're the sales dog. You're going to go out and get the money. You're going to go sell this, whatever the thing is, the car. You're going to go find those people and you're going to get it. And it's the hunter mentality. But the problem is no one wants to be sold, right? I don't want to be sold. I want to go show up to a used car lot and have somebody, "Hey, you look great in this nice 1985, whatever." You're like, don't talk to me, right? So but everyone wants to buy. Everyone wants to be a buyer. But so there's the difference between hunting, which is chasing people down. You're having to go try, and it's not a great positioning standpoint from being a marketer, being somebody who's in sales, versus farming. Farming is completely different. So I look at myself as a farmer, right? I don't look like a farmer. I'm not wearing have a hat with a pitchfork or anything, but I'm a farmer. So what I'm doing is I'm constantly dripping. I'm putting things out there. I'm watering. I'm planting. And so a farmer will go up to a tree that has an apple tree and give a little tug on the apple and see if it comes right off. It doesn't. They don't yank it and try to pull it. They kind of wait, okay, it's not quite ready. And they go to the, so that's kind of the process of just continually putting things out there and watering and planting and fertilizing. And at the right time, so I just look at everything as sales, even though I don't have a deal, right? So when do you start capital raising? You start capital raising right now. And then when you have a deal, a month, 2 months, 3 months from now, you've got these people, the fruit is ready, right? It's ready to actually, because you've been talking about it for a while, right? So it's farming as opposed to, "Oh my gosh, I've got a deal. I've got 2 weeks to go raise $1 million. Like that's not probably going to work out very well, right? Versus if you're just continually looking at it, this is a farming exercise, right? It's going to be, the fruit is ready when it's ready.
100%. I think one of the best ways to farm and to plant those seeds is getting your face and voice out there. YouTube, social media, content. Now, I personally struggle with that, but I've done the meetup setting, and we're getting into more of the virtual online space and putting a lot more out. So for someone that is listening to this and they know that that's what they need to be doing, but they're struggling to get in front of a camera. They're struggling knowing what to say to start planting those seeds and to start farming, what advice could you share with them?
Well, it's interesting. I say everything is weird until you do it. You look at really successful people. So I'm a musician as well. I write songs. A guy I follow is Ed Sheeran stuff, very successful. He's just said his first show, he said it was crap. He said it was terrible. Even songwriting, he said it was terrible. But he said, after a while, he said it's like a spigot. When you turn it on, a bunch of dirty water comes out. Then after a while, it starts coming out. Some of these good songs start coming out and things like that. And so he said, in 1 year, I think he did like 300 shows. And these were not big shows. This is when he was starting out, whatever. He would just go play every single show he could because he was getting the reps in. And that's what this is all about. So if it sucks, and this is the crazy thing. When I first started putting things out there, I still had my full-time job. I was really kind of sensitive about it. I don't know, how's it going to be? Well, I realized with social media and YouTube, if it sucks, no one's going to see it. No one's going to see it.
They're like, this is terrible.
Well, the algorithm's going to be, your mom will see it. No, nobody else sees it. So I've realized it's okay to be just putting things. I remember, this is really interesting. I have a mentor who's not in the media space, but he's more a friend through church and very successful in business. But I put I put my first few videos, I shared it with him, and he was like, oh, I don't know. Because I was looking at the camera and I'm looking at, I'm trying to figure out how to do it, whatever. And so I just didn't know. But he didn't realize it's this idea of continual improvement.
Yeah.
Right? There's Kaizen, I think is the Japanese term, where it's they believe in okay, your draft one may not be great, but if we keep doing this for the next 20 years, we're going to get really good. And so it's falling in love with the process and just saying, okay, well, this may not be great and it feels uncomfortable, but you do something uncomfortable and it will feel more comfortable. So again, if you think about the person you intend to become as a capital raiser or as somebody in this space, you should be thinking about where do I want to be in 5 years or 10 years? What's that person like? What does it feel like in my body to be somebody who comes up and owns the room, or can get up and lead a room, or can get up and host a conference or talk, and people are like, man, I love hearing what that guy says, right? You start seeing yourself that way. You're going to start learning in a way to prepare to be that person. You're going to present yourself in that way, and you're going to be really interesting. Actually, in fact, if somebody's out there listening, if you're deciding to be that person, let me know, because I want to watch your stuff, because that's the person we're all in the process of becoming. So that's what I would say. Don't look at where you're at right now. Look at who you want to become and keep focusing on that.
Version 1 is better than version none.
100%.
And you just got to take action. And we talked about this at the start of the interview, that mindset that you have to go through. And I think being okay and knowing that your first 100, your first 200 videos are probably going to suck.
Yeah.
I mean, when we started this podcast, you walked in and you're like, oh, is that a teleprompter? Yeah, we use a teleprompter for some of our content. And somebody's like, oh, well, all you got to do is read it. Have you used a teleprompter before yourself?
They're challenging to use.
They're challenging.
Yeah.
Because you got to, one, write the stuff in your own voice.
It's a lot of work.
And then two, you're trying to read it and not sound like a robot as well. But it helps. So there's different tools. There's different things. The point I'm making, version 1 is better than version none. You just got to go into it knowing that you're going to fail. And that's so opposite of how we were raised going to school. If you get a bad grade, you fail, you flunk out of school, you're not going to be successful in life. It's just wild to think and to now know that the most successful people I know in life have often failed the most because they view it as a lesson.
100%. No, I think, again, it's shocking and amazing to me still how much time and effort is spent on mindset by people that are so successful. I mean, again, I interviewed 2,500 people writing my next book called Rich Brain, how the wealthy changed their brain to change their bank account. And it's almost everybody who's worth over 10 million has some kind of mindset practice and spends a lot of time doing it. We talked about it. Actually, I just learned about one recently and I shared it at our mastermind. It's called a mind movie. And people
that's powerful.
Can Google it. And we shared it. Yeah, just you basically create, it's a movie you watch that's created around things that are important to you. It's basically you're watching different images, and if you Google mind movie, it's powerful. But again, it's creating this future person of who you want to be. And I think once you've done that, we've all kind of done that in some way. We've all had these experiences. We went for a job, and we got the job we didn't think we qualified for, or we asked the girl out and she said yes, and we married the whatever the thing is. Right? We've done some of those things, but I think our life is intended to be continually that way. And the people that we look at sometimes, we're like, oh my gosh, how do they, everything they touch it turns to gold. I think it's because they see themselves in that way. They see themselves that they are that person. And if I walk into a room, here's an example of this, and this is Rich Brain, I talk about this because there's an element of it, I call it wealth worthiness, that a lot of times we actually self-sabotage. we'll walk in a room and we'll just, oh, I don't belong here, or I'm a faker, or I feel an imposter, whatever. But it works in relationships too, because if I see a beautiful woman, let's say I'm a single guy, I see a beautiful woman at a party and I want to go say hello, but my self-talk is like, oh, she's not going to like me. Like, I'm not good looking, she only, what do I have to offer? How's that conversation going to go? Right? Probably not very good. Same with an investor. If you have an accredited, I don't really know how much to offer. I don't know. Whatever. It's going to come across to that person, right? Versus if I'm in that room at that party and I'm like, man, I have a lot to offer. I'm a great guy. I'm good looking. Man, I get better looking every day. Like, that conversation is probably going to go a lot better, whether it works or whether, but I'm going to feel better about myself. And so again, it's these things that, like, people, they seem a little woo and weird. But again, if every single successful person that I know just about has some type of practice like this, maybe there's something there.
Maybe, right? And the ones that, I was sharing this, I think, with you and some people in your group last night over dinner. I used to make fun of those people.
Yeah.
We homeschool our kids. We used to make fun of the homeschool kids. But like things change, and you start recognizing, you start learning, you start maturing spiritually, emotionally, physically. Like it's incredible what can be done when you get around the right people.
Yeah.
So, well, Bronson, this was awesome. We could keep going and going and going. But as we wrap this up, as you look back through your journey and reflect on that, personally, I'm not one that lives in regret. We learn and it happened. There's no point in stressing or worrying about it. But as you look back on your journey and raising capital and knowing what you know now, if you were to advise somebody that's getting started, what would you share with them?
I mean, I think what we're talking about, the mindset thing, is huge. I think really there's two things, though. It's getting in and around people that are doing what you want to be doing. So there's the saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. There's another quote I love. I'm a quote guy, but it says, you'll be the same person 5 years from now, except for the books you read and the people that you meet. And so that's really the networking and the education, right? You guys are offering a lot of great education, and then getting around people that are doing it. If I'm not raising capital, just ask them, how did you start doing it? What was the shift for you? What happened? What was investor number one? Was it just be very curious, just go talking and getting in rooms with people that are doing it. So I think, and it's just in any area of life. If I want to change, if I want to become a healthier person, like I lost 30 pounds a number of years ago and kept it off, and I did that by getting around people and changing habits and stuff. But if I want to grow my wealth, I've got to get around people that are 10x where I'm at and start asking a lot of questions. And I'm still doing that. I want to be the least successful person in a lot of rooms because I want to grow, and that's how you grow.
And contrary to what people think, the ones that are where you want to be, I found them to be the most generous with their time and with their mentorship. And I didn't know that starting out. I felt like I wasn't in a position to ask them for help, for guidance. But at some point in their life, they were probably exactly where I was as well. So I've recognized that a lot of very successful people and even capital raisers, they're more than willing to share with you what they've done to be successful because they remember what it was like when they started. So 100%. Bronson, absolutely incredible. Thanks so much for coming in. If our listeners want to connect more with you, you've got a book as well. Yeah. So how could they access your book and get in contact with you?
I actually got a free gift for your audience. So we don't do a coaching program or anything, but I did create a guide that's a 40-page capital raiser guide that kind of goes over. We have a master class that we charge for, but it's just basically a summary of that. So I'll give it to your audience for free. It's if you text the word RAISE, so RAISE, if I spelled it right, to 33777. You can get that for free, and then you learn about what we're working on. So,
awesome. And we'll throw that in the show notes as well.
Thanks,
so excellent. Well, again, thanks again for tuning in to a Capital Flow podcast episode. If you're looking to raise $100,000 or more from a single investor, this is the show for you. We'll catch you on the next episode.